Hello and welcome back to Talking Europe. Boosting Europe's strategic autonomy in space. That was the theme of a recent conference in Paris, bringing together the European Space Agency's 22 member countries. Ministers backed a record increase in the agency's budget of 17% to focus on priorities such as climate change monitoring and secure communications under European control. The body also presented a new generation of astronauts from 11 European countries. But how does the continent actually plan to compete with China, Russia, and even the US? And how can it achieve unity, which is hard enough to get on Earth, let alone in space? Well, to discuss some of these issues, I'm joined by Czech MEP Ondřej Kovářik from the centrist Renew Group. Welcome to you. And also by German MEP Niklas Ninas from the group of the Greens European Free Alliance. Welcome to you too. Ondřej, so if I can start with you, this new crop of astronauts that was just unveiled, it's very dominated by the traditional European space powers, isn't it? And one notices that the Czechs and the Poles, for example, they're in reserve. Is there a real imbalance there in Europe as to who believes that they are actually really a space power or not?
I think that reflects the situation in Europe when it comes to commitments of various states in terms of their space policies and activities. And also, I think, with regards to, let's say, their track record, right? I mean, the Czech Republic and countries from the Central and Eastern Europe, we've joined a bit later the activities of European Space Agency, for instance. So I think, I mean, me personally, I believe that the fact that we have, for instance, one Czech astronaut as part of the reserve group, that's already a good achievement. And I think it's also a good source of motivation to get some more members from the Czech Republic to the future crews.
Nicholas, what do you think about this balance of power among European space policies?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with Ondřej, actually, because I think it shows a little bit the commitment, but also the structures that are present. And I have no doubt that the ESA really focus on the individual level and to figure out to make the best people, astronauts that have applied for it. But what I'm a little bit more critical of is then when the French president goes to the United States to one-sidedly negotiate that only a French person must be the first one on the moon. I love the French astronauts, met Thomas, for example, and I think that he would do a great job with it. But I think the thing is that we need to figure out is to work together as Europeans. That's the deal. We will only come to the moon if we act European and don't focus on this nationality over this one.
Do you think that European space policy is sort of a cover for French prestige, as your colleague seems to be suggesting in a way?
Well, I really hope it's not the case. Obviously, I think the national interests play an important role. You have to see that the European Space Agency, it's not a European Union agency. It's an agency that is actually created by national member states, and it's intergovernmental agency, and it's actually also based on the level of contribution from various member states, where I think countries like Germany and France play an eminent role. But I think the debate should not be about, should it be French or German or a Czech who will be first on the moon from Europeans. But I think what we can do together as Europe, but also if need to be together in our partnership with American colleagues to actually get and deliver on this ambition.
What are the means that Europe can give itself, though? Because at the moment, in terms of heavy rocket launches, it doesn't have the capacity to compete, does it?
Well, Europe is actually the second biggest spender overall in the world when it comes to space. But we also have to realize that we split it up a lot. We have the EU's program, we have the ESA program, and we have the national programs from not just EU member states, but from the ESA member states. So in theory, there's a lot of knowledge, a lot of know-how, a lot of great minds, and even the investments present, but we need to harmonize it better and then show that we as Europeans can really bring something to the table. And with Artemis, we actually did that. The reason why we will have a European person on the moon is because we have delivered a crucial part of the Artemis mission without this European part, the whole mission would not be possible. And that is something that we need to show. European space policy, European space engineers are great minds, and we have a lot to bring to the table.
Yeah, but in the meantime, Europe is going to have to rely on mostly American technology, isn't it? At least for the next year, more or less.
Yeah, let's hope that we can actually deliver and procure ourselves with the critical technologies, such as the launchers, as soon as possible. If the plan is, if we go according to plan, it should have been as of next year. But I think let's also focus on other technologies. It's not only the most visible part. Obviously, some of them are really critical, but we can already see now that European companies and the European states are actually supplying some of the critical parts in various technologies that are used and also in different areas of a space program. And I think this is something which should also deserve our full attention, and also in terms of public financing, our full support.
And what about the whole question of secure communications? Because this is a big thing that European countries want to push. Just talk us through that a bit.
Well, we have a new satellite constellation that was funded by the European Union called IRIS, and we included also a special program for the ESA to extend this. And the main focus is also to ensure secure communication for institutions, but also in the case of emergencies, in the case of maybe hacking attacks or something like that, that we have a backup system all over Europe for secure internet in the end. What I'm a little bit sad about, to be honest, is that we didn't accomplish to make sure a right for internet, because it is possible with this constellation to broadcast fast internet to all regions in Europe and Africa, even in those remote areas that are not really bound with broadband access, for example. And this is something that we should have stressed as well, and where I hope that the ESA program will also see additional benefit for the European people, so that we all can profit from this secure communication in the future.
Any thoughts on the whole satellite, on the communications aspect of it?
Definitely, it's also, I think, one of the critical parts. We saw various projects that were developed and I think successfully also delivered from the European side. We have the Galileo radio navigation system, which is, I think, now fully competing with the American technologies. We also have all these issues that are linked to boosting our capabilities in military and defense area, which I think is important. We see that the space as a next operation theater, we need to be able to equip ourselves with the capabilities, not only in the telecommunications area, but in others that will help us to boost our autonomy.
So China, I suppose, is part of that equation when it comes to the military side.
Definitely. I mean, I think it's acknowledged by EU, by NATO, by states that China is a challenger. It's also a strategic challenger. It's one of the defense and strategic challenges for the future. But I think this is also an important point, that we have to cooperate with our American partners within the NATO structures, where these defense concerns can be addressed, in my view, the most efficiently.
Just a couple of thoughts from both of you about the whole question of regulation of space, which is something that you've worked on a lot, Nicholas Ninas. You wrote in a report that conflicts and collisions seem like only a matter of time. This is with a lot of satellites orbiting and so on. And you're working on the idea of a European space law. Just tell us more about that.
Well, you see, we have a huge privatization of the space sector, which can bring additional benefits for the citizens, because there's new services that we cannot dream of yet. And so this is in general a good thing. But this privatization also means that we need more regulation, because at the moment we have a lot of more satellites, but also way more trash than before. And there are no regulation on how to handle this issue. Nobody is required to bring back their own trash. And this is a huge problem, because it threatens the whole infrastructure that we have in space. So therefore we need a regulation regulation to ensure that there's sustainability criteria, to make sure that everybody brings down their own trash, but also to handle space. The space in space is not endless. There's orbits that you can use and others that you can't. And we need to figure out who's allowed to use which of these in order to do their business. And therefore we need, and for other questions also, we need a regulation. And it's the best idea to do it on a European level so that all companies throughout Europe have an advantage and have the possibility to work together within one regulation. And we can then extend this to the international stage.
Regulation of space, is that a bit idealistic at this point, given all the competition between the great powers?
I think it will be more and more necessity, given the more activities will be carried out in space, the way it's actually governed. I think that would require both the European, but in my view, international and global debate. We have to have some procedures and some clear rules that will apply to all the actors, being also public and the private, who carry out their activities in the space. And I think, I mean, there are already examples that we can use. We have some international conventions and international discussions on those issues. So why not let move it to another level and have something more consolidated and have a real robust regulatory framework for space activities in the future.
Okay, we'll have to end on that point. Thank you so much to both of you, Ondřej Kovařík and Niklas Ninas. And that's all for this edition of Talking Europe. Thanks very much for joining me here at the European Parliament in Brussels.